And we're back. We're joined on the phone today by filmmaker Adam Scorgie, and we're talking about his new film, Inmate #1, The Rise of Danny Trejo. Hey Adam, how's it going today?
I'm doing good, brother. Yourself?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Awesome, man. Well, let's talk first about your new film here, Inmate #1, The Rise of Danny Trejo. What are the listeners in for with this one?
They're in for, a great story about a guy that you certainly recognize his face, but you don't know his whole story. And when you go through the journey with Danny in this documentary and you see, that he survived, he was on death row with gas chamber sentences, to turning his life around to becoming a drug addiction counselor, and then ultimately, one of, if not the most successful Mexican-American actor of all time. It's a great story of hope and resilience and redemption, and one that he stresses, Danny, that everything good that's happened to him is a direct result of helping somebody else, something I think the world needs a little bit more of these days.
Definitely. And I got to ask what it was like working with him. He seems like a pretty humble guy considering, how popular he is now.
Danny's awesome. You don't realize how old he is. He's 76 years old, and he's the most active and energetic 70-year-old I've ever met. And Danny, because we talk about this in the doc, because Danny had survived a life of prison and hard life when he was really young, started doing heroin when he was 12, armed robberies when he was 13, was in and out of juvie until he, became an adult, and then he served 10 years in the federal pen. Different ones that, he actually really dissolved, he disengages that threatening attitude as soon as you meet him now. That's what he really worked on once he got out of prison in order to have a successful career in the movies. So when you meet him now, he's always super cordial and smiling and, hey, nice to meet you. Hey, nice to meet you. Where he actually drains his energy because he really wants to, disarm that old life and that image that he used to have. So he's tremendous to work with.
Well, how did you get involved with him? Was you just a fan of his, or what made you decide to make a film on his life?
Well, I was working with our producing partner, Rocky Medalliar, on a indie film in Utah called Cartel 2045. And Rocky's like, Adam, you're the doc guy. You should do a doc about Danny Trejo. And I only knew him as the actor, right? Like most people, I recognized the face, but I didn't really know a story. And I was like, well, it takes so much more than just being an actor in order to make, a really powerful film. And then when I met him, and then Rocky's like, you need to check out his real story, man. Like him going to prison and turning his life around and, being sober for 54 years. And I was like, holy, this is the makings of an amazing award-winning film. I was like, okay, we have to do it. So then I brought on director Brett Harvey, and he was like, Adam, I have to tell this story. So we created a pitch book, and then we went and met Danny, and Danny loved it, and he said, I'm not giving you back the pitch book because I think it's outstanding. He's like, now you just got to get my agent on board.
Yeah, it's crazy. You mentioned, how interesting his life before his career was, but, he's been probably more recognizable for his work in the last 10 years or so, but when you see his resume, it's amazing the amount of work this guy's done.
It's crazy. We even asked some of the other actors in the film, we asked Cheech, and we're like, oh, do you know how many films he's been in? He's like, oh, I don't know, a lot, 100 or something. We're like, over 400, and he's like, no shit, fucker, right? Excuse my language, but he was like, I can't believe that he's been in that much. You don't realize how much the man works, and it's because Danny doesn't look at it like most actors. He feels so privileged in order to be able to just be in this industry and be alive. He was supposed to be executed in 1968, right? So every movie to him is a privilege. So he doesn't care if it's a super indie or a big studio film. He just wants to be working. He doesn't like to have idle hands, so he bugs his agent 24/7. If he hasn't heard from her in a day, he starts joking. He calls her from all over his yard. He's like, I've now watered the entire backyard. Do you have anything for me now? I've now watered the entire front yard. You better have something for me. So he just wants to work. He loves it, and he looks at it just as being thankful to have a job.
You've done a lot of films independently as well, but now Universal stepping in, helping you guys with the Rise of Danny Trejo. That's pretty cool that you guys are getting that kind of big studio backing.
That's every filmmaker's dream. You hope to one day make a film that can get the attention of a studio. So it is, I admit, just before this call, I was just searching to see what new stuff is showing up in the media, because with Universal, there is something new every day in the news, and it is pretty pretty cool for us as a team. We kind of get to, I mean, we haven't got to meet up in person and have that celebratory drink or cigar, but we certainly are doing that, you know, over the phone and text, just seeing that, you know, every day there's some new cool article being pushed out, and it truly is a dream come true.
Yeah, that's awesome. And where can people get the film? I assume all the usual places, Amazon. Will there be like physical media available as well? Or?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be physical. Physical is just about done, but it will be, so July 7th, it'll be available everywhere. And we're going to do actually a virtual premiere July 7th, and Danny's going to do a Q&A with some special guests and some friends on that day. So you can pre-buy the film now on iTunes or Amazon or one of the various ones, and then you can tune in. If you go to IGN's websites or any of their social media, you'll be able to tune in for the virtual premiere and the Q&A, which, you know, pretty cool given what's going on in the world. We were planning to originally do some kind of theatrical and a big premiere, but obviously because of COVID and everything going on in the world, that's not happening. So they're doing this virtual premiere, which would be, you know, a close second, I think.
Yeah, it's awesome how everything's turned out. I know you and your partner have been making documentaries here for quite a while. I wanted to ask you, you know, how you guys got together and decided you would be the documentary team.
Well, it's interesting. It kind of, Jode worked originally for Kodak, and he was a big National Geographic fan, so he was always into documentaries. And then me, I kind of stumbled onto my first one called The Union, The Business Behind Getting High, and with the digital era, it really allowed documentaries to become, you know, a stable business that you can do on a regular basis. So we both kind of looked at, you know, these films that we knew had niche audiences that, you know, would get undervalued by the market a lot, like Ice Guardians or the cannabis documentaries we did, where Hollywood would be like, nobody's going to watch those, but we knew there was niche audiences. So we really, Joe had worked for big distributors for a long time as an assistant or as associate producer, so really learned what they were doing wrong and where they were overspending, and oftentimes just how they were really manipulating and not taking care of filmmakers. So we found this perfect partnership where rather than trying to Joe, rather than trying to take on 100 different films, he tries to focus on maybe 5 to 10 and really maximize the earning potential and release of those films. So it worked good because he primarily works on my team stuff because we keep delivering good films that keep doing well, and he keeps doing well and getting them sold. And he was the one that landed the Universal deal, which was pretty cool the day he called in, because our U.S. partners were kind of like, they didn't believe. They're like, you mean like Universal proper, like Universal Studios? We're like, yes, they're buying the film. They were like, oh my God, because even in the dramatic world, that's, you know, 1 in every 10,000 films gets a studio deal.
Yeah, that's great. I know I first heard of you guys, I saw your Bruce Lee documentary a few years back. I guess, what is it about documentaries that you guys prefer? I mean, have you thought of getting into other genres, or is this kind of the one for you?
Yeah, no, we both did. And for us, the reason why we liked it is that, you know, when you go into anything scripted nowadays, it's all dependent on cast. No matter how good the script is, like when you're going to sell, they're like, who's in it? And you're like, no, you should really, this is based on true story, it's a great, and they're like, yeah, but who? Because that's how they run the numbers, right? Is who's in it is what's going to sell it, regardless of if the film's good or not. And as a creator, I didn't like the way that that's going. And, you know, Joe, as a seller, is just like, man, like, you should really watch this film. That, like, yeah, none of the actors are marquee or A actors, but they just don't sell if it's not. So we got into the doc world, which is so much more about the story, right? Docs is all about a great story. A great story will sell. Sure, if you're doing something on Danny Trejo, it's a bit more commercial, but the passion behind it and everybody involved, I find personally, every time I've tried to dip my toes in the scripted world, the egos just drive me mental. Whereas docs, you're not dealing with a ton of money, but you can make a living, and, you know, it's all about telling the story correctly, and everybody's on board to just kind of make it work and do the best thing they can. So for all those reasons, we just stick to docs more. I get the odd scripted stuff, but we all just end up going, no, we'll pass.
Well, is there like a dream subject for you, like somebody you could pick, you know, maybe anybody to do a documentary on?
Well, you know, there's lots that, it's pretty interesting nowadays. Now that this has come out and a few others, you know, we're certainly getting a lot of stuff come our way. And I know there's, I mean, I grew up as a big wrestling fan when I was younger, and I loved the Andre the Giant doc that came out recently, so I'd love to go into the wrestling genre. No one in particular. There's a few I've been circling, but, pretty excited about even our next one that's coming out. We got to work with Michael Bisping, who I've become good friends with now, and what an amazing man, and definitely not the villain that, you were sold as when you were a fan watching. When you get to know this guy, like, I'm honored to be able to call him a good friend now, and his story is really, like, if there ever was a real-life Rocky, Michael Bisping's story is the real-life Rocky. Every time he was a number one contender, he would lose that title shot to a guy that all of them have now tested positive for steroids. Dan Henderson, all these guys tested positive after beating him. He finally gets his title shot against Luke Rockhold with only 14 days' notice while he's on the set of Triple X in Toronto, and he shocks the world and he wins. So very excited to release that this fall. We just had our last kind of pickup shoot yesterday, so that one is kind of a dream come true. We're kind of getting to work with Danny and him, and now we're working also with bodybuilder Phil Heath. We're getting to do some pretty cool stuff, and that's how we take care of our family, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool for sure. And, with like 30 for 30 and Dark Side of the Ring and these different sorts of shows are so popular now that I think you guys are going down the right avenues here and definitely going to be around for a long time.
Well, thank you. Well, factually, yeah, it seems to be, with digital making things more accessible and much more content being available now, documentaries are kind of, I think, we're calling it the golden age of docs, because as we kind of mentioned with scripted now, like, you'll go through, there's so much new content between all these streaming services coming out every day. And for a movie, like, it's tough now. Most movies, like, I have no desire to click on them because you'll look at it and you'll be like, oh, it's got so-and-so and so-and-so and this person. Like, how bad can it be? And I'll go 10 minutes in. I'm like, this is horrible. How did you convince these actors to do this? Like, this movie is boring. I'm not into it. Whereas a documentary, like, we even watched Athlete A on Netflix last night, which is about gymnastics. I'm not even a big gymnastics person, but just that subject matter of the abuse that was going on with the American Olympic team was really interesting, right? Like, I ended up watching it. Like, factual seems to connect you more because you want that niche thing rather than this giant conglomerate of like, oh, well, this actor's in it, so you should watch it. Because the movies are not like, when I grew up, anything Stallone or Arnold or Van Damme, I was in. But there is no actor that does that for me nowadays.
Well, again, it's great. Everything's working out, man. July 7th will be the premiere here of Inmate #1, The Rise of Danny Trejo. You mentioned a lot of other stuff in the works. Is there anything else maybe we missed or something we should be looking out for?
No, I think just that. Just tune in July 7th, and then Bisping's documentary will come out this fall. And, God willing, hopefully these things keep doing well, and my team and I can keep making award-winning content that the audiences are enjoying.
Excellent. Well, again, Adam, it's been great speaking with you. I'm definitely excited. I'm a big fan of Danny Trejo, and I'm becoming a big fan of your documentaries as well. So thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
And again, that was filmmaker Adam Scorgie. His new film, Inmate #1, The Rise of Danny Trejo, is coming out July 7th.